plan to. Didn't plan a live stream. But you can't be neutral on a moving train, right? Shit keeps popping up. It's worth talking about. So I gotta keep on fucking doing live streams. For some reason, I feel it necessary. Some of this will get choppy because we're on the move here, but we'll get stopped shortly and stabilize the stream. Stabilize all streams. So the reason I wanted to stream is because I learned, I wasn't aware of this. So basically, within I guess the last week, I didn't learn about it till today, but there are. I was aware in so much that the executive administration was deploying federal assets for both purposes of the riots, and I learned about additional assets being deployed to meet under the guise of stopping crime in cities. Then I learned, and they started going to work in the last week. It's been very hush-hush in terms of the mayor of Kansas City has made a statement about it in terms of the initial cooperation, but there's not even a public record of when they started coming there. So they've been coming gradually, and then they just bumped up numbers. But they got an additional 100 in the last week or so. And the public-facing purpose of this is to be a response to a single incident. Okay, we're breaking up because we're going through a bad spot here. So I'm gonna pull up and then we'll get back. Trying to get to a free spot here. Let me know in the comments if you start to pick up signal again. Please, if you would. Any signal as of now? Any signal? I'm back. Okay. All right. What the fuck was that? Okay. So there have been federal agents that have been deployed into Kansas City, Missouri. It's a pretty sizable number. If you're not familiar with Kansas City, Missouri, it's rough area. St. Louis and Kansas City are both rough. St. Louis is rougher than Kansas City, but Kansas City has old crime in it. St. Louis has like Wild Boy New Crime, Chicago, St. Louis, right? Kansas City is more like systemic old blood crime. Okay, we're buffering. All right. So there was a boy that got shot in a drive-by in Kansas City last month, and that is the boy's name is Delange or something like that. I can't remember. The operation that they're deployed under, the federal government, is the boy's last name, right? So, and this would be like an inner city kid. This is like an urbanite black child in Kansas City. I don't know what their status is on, like how they interface with society or what, but they're being like the poster, they're the poster family for the operation. And they brought in, it's somewhere between, I don't know the number, 400 agents. Yeah, I'm almost stabilized here. Just hang on. Just bear with me. Well, I'll recap so that we can track here. Streams, I've had a serious issue with net throttling. Like the timing, so where we were just driving, that area is poor signal. But I've been having really serious issues with net throttling for pretty much about a month after I started doing it. Yes, it started. Okay, I'm pulling into a good position here. I'm happy with this. We're gonna set up shop here. Okay. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. Federal agents have been deployed to Kansas City, Missouri. They're anywhere in number from 250 to 400. They're being deployed in an operation named after a kid that got shot in drive-by, a small child. The city itself is dumbest, the concern is it's just very. Sometimes when you read this stuff, it's really easy to read too far into it because people's brainwashing and their social directives that they follow to a T every time, it never fails. And people they're so good at following orders that they didn't get, that nobody gave them, and somehow they can still manage to just fucking. The mayor of Kansas City, all kinds of statements that give, with the coordination of the newspapers, which are small time here in Missouri. With the coordination of the newspapers, gave public comment that they were, signifying that he was concerned as the mayor of Kansas City with the deployment of federal troops. So what's going on now is that is a parallel of Portland situation. So Portland, obviously the whole thing with Fed troops getting deployed is synthetic in terms of the dialectic that's created there, right? I'm talking about between the people of the city, like Portland, for instance. So Portland, Antifa is run by the same people that are running the fucking federal government that's deploying troops. And they have to pretend, they have to put on this theater charade kabuki show for you guys so that you don't get too scared while they get set up, right? And that's what's going on. And so the Portland mayor, gave basically like the most dramatic public comments to, condemn police brutality, to ride that pony that was already out of the stable from all these protests and shit. Like, we already knew that was the control paradigm directive. But, his statement supported that, and then the Kansas City mayor is replicating that. And so he gave a statement of concern about federal agents being deployed into Kansas City. Under the way that he did it is not direct. He did it passively. It's like a passive aggressive thing. The way that he did it is he said, we welcome any cooperation at all with federal law enforcement for a community-based the Kansas City mayor gave a statement that he's all on board for any kind of federal support, law enforcement support, full cooperation for anything that's a community-based policing effort for, nonviolence and peace, right? But the caveat, we will not tolerate the oppression of, voices protesting, We won't tolerate that. We won't permit that. We won't permit dissenters from being silenced, right? And I'm paraphrasing here, but those are the important points of what he said, right? This guy's cucked as fuck. So what's going on is that and I don't know, I'm not saying that the mayor knows what he's saying. I'm not saying that the mayor is like, mainlined into fucking world government or something. I would tend to assume that this guy is an idiot and has no clue what's going on, and he's so enslaved that he can't help but just fall in line without anybody even telling him what to do. Like he's just coming with the shit on his own because he thinks it's the most advantageous position and thing to say. Because he's placating all sides, but he's mostly placating socialist world government and the control paradigm. So what he's doing is he's saying, number one, we welcome, getting fucking boots over here. That's what he's saying. As if, so number one, if you don't know anything about Kansas City is, has had fucking crime problems forever, for very long. Like since, I mean, fuck, Kansas City has had a motherfucking crime problem since it was fucking, what the fuck was it called? What was the old name of Kansas City? Like Westgate or whatever? Kansas City used to be approximately in that area, used to be the send-off point, like the last point to enter into the West. And that was like the old name of the town reflected that, and they changed it to Kansas City later. And then you get the modern history of Kansas City. Kansas City's had a fucking problem with crime forever. It's had a nexus that's both, it's geographically positioned to just have a lot of activity and shit. And with that, and with, economic stimulation, you also have the Fed is in Kansas City. And so they get fucking, and it's always been an issue, and that's why, when suddenly federal troops get deployed to Kansas City, when it's always had a crime problem. I mean, fuck, man. I used to work with a guy that was a teacher in Kansas City. He was like an inner city school teacher. He's also he's a non-vet. He's fucking rad. And he would talk about like how his students would die, like not show, like he had like a student that he's working on and they just like die and then really bum him out. Like Kansas City was bad, right? Has always had a crime problem. The kid getting shot is terrible. It's nothing new at all. It's a cover story. And so what's really going on is that the federal government, I don't know why they're choosing Kansas City among other places. They're sending them other places as well. Kansas City just stands out because it's the oddball, right? Because there's no particular reason. Things aren't particularly hot there, and the government in Kansas City is apparently already on the world government dick. So they're already going along to get along. So there's no reason for they don't need any muscle over there. So they're sending way too many fucking federal agents. Even 250 that's like a massive number. If the residents of Kansas City really wanted to fucking clean their streets, they could. They don't really want to, and so they've tolerated crime since Kansas City's been around. The executive cabinet is who's deploying this, right? Now, a few weeks ago, you had Pompeo give out a Department of Justice directive, it says DOJ, in coordination with the DHS, in order to make a national campaign to fucking go after BLM, Antifa, and Boogaloo boys, right? Bruh. They're getting advisory from private entities that are most likely not the exact same guy, but the same group of people that introduced the concept of fucking Boogaloo in the first place, and probably fucking everything else. It's probably very limited in the number of people that are brainstorming the little trademark names of these little sociological science experiments that they're unleashing on the public. And so things they're developing. And this is all known. This is expected. It's not a surprise. It's just the specifics are always surprising. How it reaches its destination can be surprising. Where it's at, like where we've come to, is not surprising. Um, and it's gonna get a lot worse. I mean, we haven't even really started, so I shouldn't even say it's gonna get a lot worse, because you don't have we haven't even started yet. This is just the preliminary phase. But so if you're slow, what's going on is that the federal government created a bunch of the federal government. It's not the federal government. I really have to be careful about what I say to communicate to you guys in a clear way. I make a lot of assumptions that are in error, and it really degrades the effectiveness of my communication to y'all, right? So, no, I'm not using Wi-Fi. Why do you ask that? Is it a shit stream, or is it a little bit clearer or something? I'm using cellular right now. Now, the end goal of all this is not the war with China. That is a pit stop. Okay. All right. So, proceed with transmission. Okay. All right. We're fucking clear enough. All right, we're going. All right. So, the supra-state structure, which is embedded and has completely corrupted the United States, is LARPing as the United States government. And they are putting the finishing touches on positioning security apparatuses throughout the United States at key nodes in both deployments of military and federal government, positioning them and then putting them into just basically a wait status and giving them homework while they're standing around waiting at different cities and shit. And it's happening slowly and in isolated tangential response to the fake events that they're creating with protests and shit. So every single time there's a protest or like this thing in Kansas City, it doesn't have anything to do with protests. This is just gang violence. But what they're doing is the exact same thing that they're doing, like sending federal agents to Portland, which is having protest violence, right? So it's just a general violence response initiative. And the people that are involved, basically restructured their thesis of what's wrong with the United States to say BLM and Antifa and Boogaloo Boys, right? Well, Boogaloo Boys, that's the fucking fake thing that they introduced to tie up military-aged males in the United States into the identity of Boogaloo. It's kind of like a little science experiment they released on the internet in order to get people to participate so they can identify and map them out, right? And so they're deploying federal assets to different nodes around the United States and staging them, right? And this is what's going on, right? So we're in the staging period right now, where I don't know how long this. I can imagine it could last a lot longer because they're going to need to deploy a lot more assets, but it's definitely a progression in this whole the opening of the conflict that's gonna come at some point. In terms of what happens in the United States, I don't know. It could be anything from assassinations and under the cover of national chaos, just cleaning house of their enemies, all the way up into full-blown civil war. Kind of all depends on you guys. China comes after that. Now, somebody in the comments said that they were, they made they're making just a simple statement, they're saying that the all this shit with the end goal of China. Well, China's not really the end goal. So China is just something that has to happen because it's such a it is the tool that's going to be used to ultimately finish and crack the United States. Through that engagement, that's how the United States goes down the path of no return at all for the people of the United States. I'm not talking about the government. The government of the United States has already gone down the path of no return. There is no government in the United States, and it's a hollow shell, and it can't stand on its own without the injection of a outrageous money supply that you don't have and you don't possess, and that you won't create either from the resources that are in the United States within the boundaries. So let's say that you shake free your world government and create your own nation. You can't keep on going on the same model because it's got a fucking hollow shell, and you will never be able to produce the energy that's necessary to maintain this. I wouldn't even call it a lifestyle. I call it enslavement. But I'm sure there's people that like the way that things are, and you're not going to have that anymore. Any way that you cut it, you won't have it anymore. It's way too expensive. It's for them, I'm saying, for the people that pay for it, and it doesn't even make any sense to expect that to continue. So I don't know why you would, but if you're confused about that, you're going to go through serious economic and social paradigm changes in the United States domestically that everyone will perceive and understand and be disgruntled about. But you're where you come out on the end of that after China is a new state. That's where you're at minimum the collapse of the United States. You're not going to have the United States. It's not whatever we come out on the other end. It's not going to be called the United States any way that you cut it. The reason why is because the United States has been corrupted for so long, and people aren't aware of it. They just have they're completely detached from the government, and there's no accountability at all. And so we're on, a pipe dream of the U.S. government reflecting the American people. And so because of that, we internalize our traditional title of the United States as a nation state. But what's really going on is that you've had the nation state entity and the government that facilitates that existence functionally and in terms of staff and stuff has been completely corrupted and eaten out and corroded to like a termite infestation for a very long time. And it's as the termite infestation goes through the infrastructure of the building, through the wood, through all of the framing, it starts on the interior where you can't see it, and then it works its way out, and then you start seeing fucking holes on the surface, and then the motherfucking studs break. That's how this shit works. Well, it's completely analogous to what is occurring, or what has occurred in the United States. You're right now you're seeing the initial holes of the termite starting to pop through. The fucking studs are gonna collapse, and when they do collapse, society is going to have a catharsis of some type, and I can't tell you exactly what the flavor of that will be because I don't know how much world government bullshit they'll swallow, at any particular time in this process, but it will manifest in a catharsis where they're going to the American people are going to understand that their government was stolen from them, and that they stole your name, they stole your flag, they stole everything, and so it's just not worth continuing with the same name. And so you under that scenario, you will have let's say that you heroically save the day and save your country and shit and people. Well, you're gonna want a different fucking name by the end. You don't feel like that now. At the end, you're gonna feel like that. You're gonna feel like we're deserving of new designation to fucking distinguish us from that hellish past, right? That's it. That you're gonna want a new name. If you get the world government taking shit over, they're going to want to change the name also. So any way that you cut it, once you get on the other side of this, you're not going to have the United States. Period. It's done. Yeah, you're So, Kansas City is simply a microcosm of what's happening all over the country. It's just very big in Kansas City. The interesting thing is that I don't know exactly why. I don't know why there's so. I mean, it's a lot of fucking feds to be in Kansas City, especially if it's 400. If it's 400, there's something going on because it's not. It's too many fucking agents for Kansas City. So let's not get into that yet. Come back and ask me that question. Like, let's do the theology-related stuff at the end of the stream, like towards the end, as we get more intense in this stream as it progresses. Okay, let's not start off there. The so that's the first thing I want to talk about was KC. The stream last night. We talked about a lot of things. I sort of got some emails with people. I'm assuming that they're watching Mike Glover and they want to get my skinny on him, and I'm not willing to do that because I don't know Mike Glover. And so I just talked vaguely about my perception from watching and judging a couple of his videos, putting that into a societal window frame to discuss people's perspective that may have a similar perspective. Now I will say this. This is what I will say that I didn't say last night about that. The Mike Glover, who is he's former U.S. Special Forces. So one of the things he said. Now I have no idea what organization he's setting up, what it consists of. I have no idea what Mike Glover's ties are, how legitimate he is as a human being, or how corrupted he is, or ignorant, or he could be a fucking genius. I don't know. I don't know the man. So I do, if one thing's like another, I know that fucking SF guys have a real problem with getting information through State Department and not understanding how corrupt the government is. And so they're kind of like idiots in terms of like they view everything like a hierarchy, which is the first problem, because that's not how the United States is supposed to be set up. But it is, because you're under apex world government control, you fucking retards. So because of that, they have a sense of like, oh, you can get the good info from, I got this, I know this big dick at the fucking State Department. And, we talk. Like, I know a guy. And they use it to reflect their credibility. And I'm not talking about Mike. I'm talking about just people, people that I've talked to and judge, taking what they say and shit, which is typically wrong. So what you get through the State Department is fucking fake. It's just political fake shit. Now, it's real in terms of the operations. Like, you're going to be privy to operational information that is sensitive. And that's real, right? The actual, like the things that you hear about, like this theater, that theater, that's all, I mean, it's fake, man. Like, there is no politic. The politic of the United States is supposed to be the American people. American people don't know shit. The American people aren't running the United States government. It's foreign government. You're hearing exactly what they want you to hear. So in terms of that, that is that's kind of something I'd pick up from SF community. That they're real sure of themselves and they have no idea how compromised this situation is. It's been compromised for a long fucking time, guys. And like, if you're getting like insider information, it's probably because you're supposed to. Especially if you're a trigger puller, that, like, trigger pullers do not need to know what's fucking going on. I'm talking about from the world government perspective. Like, they don't have they have zero to gain. The more that you know about what would really be going on under any paradigm, it doesn't matter what the model is, you know that politics is kind of shady, right? Well, under any model that you could think of, bullshit or not, the more that you know as a trigger puller, the more dangerous you are. So, like, they have a vested interest in keeping you in the fucking dark. And so, because you probably resent that, they're putting a constant stream of bullshit feeding down at you guys. And you guys share it around like Gossip Girls. It's not even a compromise the mission thing. It's that they don't want, because they're smart cats in fucking SF. And so if they, if they get correct information, they're going to fucking start having pattern recognition. So to be fed disinformation that's a little bit off, and canaries, like canary theaters of war and focuses of interest of the government, where they're saying like, we're looking at these guys now. Well, it's fake. I mean, they're creating it. It's just fake. It's real in terms of people die and it's people's lives, but it's not. It's not really. They're not going to really discuss or disseminate actual information on what is really going on. That's going to explain current events. You're going to be in a constant state of like, well, we were looking at this, but then this thing suddenly developed over here, and then like we're responding to that. But then to get ahead of the next one, now we're looking at this other thing over here. Like they're dancing fucking circles around you. No, PSA is never gonna make a fucking Dugan lower. Guaranteed. They should. Not even. I don't even want one, and I don't want the idolization. It would just be a confirmation of a certain thing that I would want to see. But I don't think they. I don't think they would do that. So I don't know anybody at PSA, but where I'm at now is like I don't trust PSA. I'll put it this way: PSA has moved to really consolidate AR-15 market, and there's Zionists there. I'll tell you that. Now, that's not to say that I don't like stuff that PSA sells, but in terms of getting a firearm cheap, I don't know the deal, so I don't wanna insinuate anything with that. I'm just firing off fucking randomly from my brain cells here. Let's move on. The other thing, if there were any criticism I had in terms of there's no criticism. Like, go with your heart, do what you guys want to do, no problem, right? I think that it's a dangerous move to go into any kind of consolidated, coordinated social group that's outside of your purview and understanding of what's going on. Meaning that what happens with a lot of this stuff, like when things get hot in society, and people go like, you do have to have information control for any kind of thing that's going on that would be like direct action or anything like that, of any consideration. But what happens is like, there's so many possibilities, right? You could have legit dudes that are operationally competent and that want to create the conditions where they're, I'm talking about on a things are exactly the way they look model right now. You can have people that are operationally competent and they're positioning themselves into coordinating with people to create the foundational framework to be able to do direct action later. And that could be legit. But what happens is that they have typically, depends on the person, right? But in most cases, most people in the United States have no fucking clue what's going on. There's a vast majority of people have no clue what's going on, including military. And so, somebody can make a network of shit to position themselves in an advantageous demeanor for, flexible direct action at a later time. And then just if they're legit, then they're going to like a legit person that's not corrupt. They're going to basically like go down a fucking rabbit hole that's just never going to stop, and they're going to be constantly reevaluating, never have a good foundation because they're just going to be learning all this shit now, and it's going to be very disorienting. There's a huge danger of being swallowed up because people that are new to this stuff have a very difficult time understanding that money is actually a weapon. It's not a resource. Like your resources are the shit that you give up for money in exchange for money, which is worthless. The actual money in the technology, doesn't matter what it is, whether we're talking about US dollars or, specie coin from the 1800s where you have like gold coins and shit. None of this, the type doesn't matter. Money is a weapon to increase velocity of exchange and the simplicity of it in order to create opportunity for change in a society. And that's really what it is. And Your societies would be a lot more stable and last a lot longer if you didn't use it. Even under situations of direct subversion and direct action against you, you would have a lot easier time defending against it if you never even took money in the first place. But we've been using it for a long time now, all over the world. But anyway, people that are trying to set up networks that don't understand what's going on are going to be really overwhelmed by shit if they actually start getting on the correct trail, or if they're, especially particularly like SF guys, they're basically going to get fed bullshit sandwiches from the people that are at the apex of the intelligence community, and they're going to get fed bullshit, and then they're just going to send them in the direction that they want to send them. You know what I mean? The reality, here's the reality. There is no, like, we are on this fucking Titanic together. There is no secrecy. There should be no secrecy, and there should be no special information at all. And any kind of model that would be creative and effective in terms of fighting world government is going to involve total openness, absolute openness and honesty, and secrecy and shit like that is not that is a, like, the concept of secrecy and OPSEC, operational security. All of that shit is a product of world government taking over your country. So where you think, OPSEC is good and then going into a neurotic, paranoid state, which is the modern military, what is really going on is that you don't have any intelligence. Like, you have no intelligence apparatus, you have no data security whatsoever. Everything that you share and do in the military is just looked at like a fucking public library book. And the only thing that's actually secured are the realization and identity of the actual real operations that are taking place, which are very secret and not done through government channels at all. They're executed through government channels. They're not like created through. They're not like having like meeting minutes where they're talking about like, and then we do this and then we do this. It's not going to be there. You're just not gonna. You're not gonna. And it can be very trippy. It can be a very trippy experience for somebody that's in the system, like in the military, and very invested into it, where they have security clearances and shit like that, and they did jobs where they could brag about them. It felt like they could, and it was impressive. People like that. While totally, this isn't like a judgment or negative statement against you, right? If that's you, they're very vulnerable to pride, and so they have a lot of difficulty perceiving high level actual shit that's going on, like the actual operations that are taking place in the world all around them all the time, that have taken place before they were ever born, before they ever decided to stop finger banging their girlfriend in high school and join the fucking military and then go into SF or whatever they're doing, CIA, whatever. I mean, a lot of people, you guys understand, like, a lot of people in the CIA do not understand what's going on. Like, field operatives, like low-level field operatives in the CIA don't understand what's going on. That shit is compartmentalized as fuck. But what you should understand is that they, both SF, high-level military, SF, intelligence services, operatives and shit like that, they don't, they view it like compartmentalization is a mechanic of national security. So what you don't know can't be used against you if you're compromised or whatever. Need to know is need to know. You don't need to know, you don't need to know, right? That's how they view it. The reality is that this is the way that you are kept in the dark, so you can't figure out what the fuck is going on. And most of the model came post-World War II. And you know where it came from? It came from private business. Particularly where you see it in the United States, where you see it expand, is in the post-industrial revolution era, which would be Rockefellers building a railroad through the United States, right? And harnessing and centralizing fuel in the United States. Now, if you're not familiar with history, you know, what you read in history books in terms of like what happened in history, number one, it doesn't give you any kind of overview to describe what's actually going on, which is observable if you're looking at the correct events, like in terms of influence, like what changed society and stuff. What happened in the United States was basically that you had an old model where the United States was set up to it basically was set up like a factory using the technology of the time. And so we're talking like post-founding in the 1700s. The United States began to get set up like a factory, and mobilization in the United States for factory operations was not there. And the banks tried to get in really early in the beginning of the 19th century. That'd be like, like 1812, shit like that. Thomas Jefferson. The banks were trying to get in there, and they had a really hard time because shit was just too wild up in here. And technology wasn't here yet to have formed the beast that has absolute reign over fucking everything. And so what they had to do was if you think of the United States in its disposition geographically and in terms of its resources, turn around like 3,000 miles coast to coast, 2,500 north to south. What happened was that they reorganized through money impingement in the United States, like opportunity and finance, to turn it into to section the United States and to intermobilize the United States between its regions. And then what they did was they had a natural there's a natural kind of stratosphere that forms between north and south, and that's based off of agriculture production. So the southern states have have longer growing seasons and a greater variety of products that can be grown in the south. And so the south, geographically, like in terms of solar energy, it naturally ends up being the most advantageous place in terms of latitude. The potential latitudes that's in the United States, it's more advantageous in the south for them to do crop production, right? And then the west isn't even occupied at this point. Like, this is all wildland territory. And then the east, you have, that's like all your merchants and shit, and your people that are actually running government. And then what they wanted to do was they wanted to, close off the back doors of the United States, get everything, do a inventory, like what's here, and then set it up to be able to be intermobilized between the different sections of the United States, and start working to engage and propagandize the families that are in the United States. Because what happened was, when they go west, when the early Americans go west, pioneering and shit, they're basically setting up families on properties, and they're just like living the good life, and so they're just completely disconnected from the system, have no no fucking nothing. There's nothing to steal from them, right? Like there's nothing. Not only is there nothing that they can steal from, I mean, without force, they can go there by force. That's it, and that's where you get the Civil War. But they're just out there on their own. And so what happens is they have to build a fucking railroad all through the United States and set up crops in terms of export and the money potential to cause enough stimulation to motivate people to participate in that system instead of trying to go their own way. And so you get the gradual centralization of the most financially productive crops. That'd be like your tobacco, cotton, linen, shit like that. Early on, replaced by cotton. Cotton replaced linen. But that would be like flax. All of that shit gets sent off to the rest of the world through the production by the South, and yada yada yada. Who the fuck? Lock and load video. How do you feel about Carl and his Old West vignettes? You got to tell me. I don't even know what that is. So anyway, what I was describing was the consolidation in the Industrial Revolution of the United States to turn the United States into a coordinated, like connecting the right hand and the left hand of the United States, the brain to the toes and the feet, with a transportation system to move goods around and to move people around. And then all your products will go out of the port, which would primarily be the Mississippi River, which comes out into the Gulf, and then it circles around the Gulf like Florida, goes to the East Coast. That's the quickest way to do it, by water, right? Because you didn't have highways then. And then it ships out from the East Coast. That would be primarily like, both Florida and New York are like the primary ones. And New York's like your primary like merchant shipping base of operations and sales, like sales coordination for global stuff. And then originally what they were doing was sending it to Europe to get processed into textiles or whatever, to package products, and then sending out from fucking Europe to disseminate to the rest of the world. And it was creating this chain of money, hot sauce that everybody was getting on, right? Like everybody's involved in this system. It was just like, well, we can, like live out here and like live our lives and nobody will fuck with us, or we can try to compete for money and just jump on this money train. Go to people that also believe in it and buy their shit, and they'll just give it to us, and we just give them this paper, and then we'll ride this country in oblivion in a couple hundred years. No, I'm just kidding. They didn't know that. What they just wanted money, right? And so they people participated, and then it created a situation where the East Coast gets factories and shit like that. And then from the interior of the United States, like the actual wild men that are like just going out there and like being like fuck society, and they go out there, and they have a couple of generations, and their generations aren't, the apple rolled a little farther from the tree, and they're like, well, let's go work at the factory, and then they get on the fucking trains and go out to the coast, right? Well, what else is on the coast? That's, if you didn't notice, that is also your like socialists and Democrats, right? Like your radical change comes from the coast, because that is the, like in modernity, I'm saying, in the modern United States, it's all of your progressive, big ass air quotes, all of your progressive elements of society are completely coincidentally intertwined with commerce, right? Like velocity of commerce. Now that's not a indicator of their intelligence or success or value. That is an indicator of how enslaved they are. And this is a by the system of trade. You see what I'm saying? And the East Coast was the primary origin of that system being set up, and all the shit going through the United States, the railroads and the oil and shit, that's all through fucking Rockefeller, right? That's like Rockefeller, Carnegie Steel, it's fucking all of your origin. You get a lot of origin families in the United States that go pretty much, they just kind of died out, that were aristocratic, like high class people that just accidentally stumbled onto the boat and weren't really a part of it, and they just kind of like died out, and they got out-competed, just like evolution works, by people that were working together and understood what was going on, and were cutthroat to the end, and they won. And so what to round this off, right? What I'm saying about this whole fucking thing is that, what the fuck am I saying? In terms of SF, the way that they view intelligence and compartmentalization. I'm talking about SF. I'm talking about like military intelligence. I'm talking about private intelligence. You either understand exactly of what is destroying the United States, or you have no idea what's going on, and you're figuring out. You're like thinking in your head right now. You're like, fuck, is he fucking right? Like, oh shit, I never thought about it this way. If you're not in the club, then you don't know. You would fucking know if you're there. Now, the shit that you think of as compartmentalization in intelligence, that you think of good housekeeping, firewalling information, that you willingly accept as like, I'm a good boy. I go with the program, OPSEC. Like the more OPSEC that you have, the better, the more good to go you are. Now, OPSEC is important in terms of like, if you're fighting a war to the death, you want some fucking OPSEC, right? Like in a campaign. In a tactical sense, in a theater sense, you want some OPSEC so that you're not like, so your enemy isn't, if you don't have OPSEC, your enemy doesn't even need a fucking camera to watch you. They don't need to send any spies, like you are the spies, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the standardization of your compartmentalization system for intelligence and the way that it's shared, and the way that there's no oversight. You know who oversees it? The fucking world government. That's who fucking oversees it. And that system, where that system comes from in the United States, is not from the government. It comes from the entities like Rockefeller, which is a family that just got selected to be bagmen in the United States, to enter the United States because the banks had a really hard time getting in the United States at first. Like after the revolution, with Britain, which was like the fucking the spear point of world government, because they did a revolution in Great Britain, and then they like stole their fucking entire nation, and then created a new monarchy with it, and they were like spearheading the world, causing the world to go through all kinds of fucked up shit like the 7 Years' War, which is what resulted directly in the United States being formed. But the business entities had to come into the United States because they had to subvert, and so they had to go through bagmen that could interface with the frontiersmen and pioneers that were in the United States, that would have been happy to fucking scalp them if they knew who they really were. And so they had to send some people that were like very deceitful liars. That would be like your Rockefeller family and shit. All of your Standard Oil guys, like all that shit, it's all bagmen. That's what it is. It's bagmen and people, and if they're not bagmen, then they're people that just don't know any better, and they're looking at life materialistically, like, what can I get over other people, and then they don't even care. They don't even care if they destroy the world or destroy their future generations and cut them off or something, because they're not going to have any opportunity to fucking destroy the world. They don't care about that shit. They're not thinking about that. They're thinking about right now. Just like most people now are thinking about right now. They're not thinking about ideals. They're thinking about me. Like the most wealth that you could have possible are the things that are provided for you without any middleman here on earth. And all that you're doing by going through middlemen is subjugating yourself to having somebody stick their fucking dick into your family, into your life, into your manhood, into your existence on earth, and interrupt the chain of connection. I'm talking about in a materialistic sense. Your inheritance, like what you have access to in physicality, like while you're spending your time here on earth. You're not going to take it with you when you die. Whatever's physical, like everything physical stays here. You go bye, right? The things that you could have had, the wealth that you could have had in materialism, you trade out for worthless currency, right? All that stuff that system got introduced into the United States. It's an ancient system. It got introduced into the United States through business entities, and they have standardized practices, TDPs, and procedures that are the base model in private industry, in international private industry, that became the intelligence model that you follow in terms of compartmentalization and your different tiers of intelligence. Now, the reason that you actually don't know who's at the top of like your intelligence community is not because of OPSEC and national security. It's because you have foreign government running the United States and running you. All right? That's the truth. That's what's really going on. So when vets are like, I mean, unless you're just fucking like hot shit smart guy, which is extremely possible. I'm not talking about Mike now. I'm talking about just people in general. Unless you're a fucking smart guy, then I kind of err on the assumption that you don't actually, most people don't really understand what's going on, and so they're in a very vulnerable position, and they don't have the ability to even understand that or detect it, which makes them even more vulnerable. Like if they could detect it, now maybe they can detect it. I don't know. Maybe some SF guys are watching and they're like, "Fuck, he's fucking right." Like, here, how about this? Like, do you think it's? I'm gonna talk about like Darcy for a minute, right? This is just a tangent. Do you think it's a fucking coincidence that Darcy started training with gas masks for law enforcement agencies like over the past decade, and like they're doing CQB with like gas masks all the time? What have you seen recently in like what have you seen differently about what's going on right now in this immediately, like the last 2 years, in terms of law enforcement presence in the United States? What has happened? Conveniently enough, there have been coordinated protests all over the United States resulting in violence and murder, loss of life, American citizens, regardless of whether you agree with them or not. There are real people getting killed out here. And what do you see about the law enforcement? You see fucking, they're all wearing fucking MSA gas masks, right? They have like, it's a standard thing, right? Because there's tear gas being used, there's CS gas being used, right? Darcy's run by SF, right? Now I've talked to the guy Darcy. He's a fucking solid dude. I like him. I don't know what his disposition is in terms of his philosophy or like what he. We're not. We haven't talked for years, but I have talked to him like one or two times, and he probably thinks I'm a weirdo. That's fine. I think he's pretty cool. It would be interesting to understand like where the like Darcy had a huge volume of law enforcement coming there doing CQB training with gas masks for like a fucking long time. I mean, I'm assuming it's like a decade or more, and you didn't really see that kind of like flesh out and manifest until this came up. It's very like, you see what I'm saying? It's kind of interesting, right? Anyway, just a thought that just popped up in my head. I was just thinking about that while I was talking. My point is that I strongly suspect from talking to SF community guys that they're all kind of getting their intel and shit from like Apex sources that are higher up, close to the top, and they're feeding you guys disinfo. That's what I think. And it would be, you guys are probably so disciplined that like, you don't fucking break OPSEC to talk to each other. But it'd be really interesting if you guys in SF fucking put your notes together and saw who all of your sources are and just see how small that pool is and see who it is, right? It'd be really interesting. I'm not talking like a public thing. I'm talking like in your SF community, because maybe you learn something different. Who's this biggest guy? Biggest blackest is tired of waiting. When is the happening? The happening is happening right now. It's transpiring right now in front of your fucking face. But you know when people are going to start dying? And they're already dying. This is a trickle start. Well, that's so. Amy asks, wait. So what are they using mass to train for? So basically, so what happens? So like in special missions units, I'm talking about like what is like Delta Force and SEAL Team 6 and shit like that, which are they're very in the United States. They're really very separate communities. And I was in Ramadi, which is a Navy sector, so I worked with like SEAL Team 2. That doesn't mean that like I know a bunch of SEAL Team 2 guys. It's just that like usually when I went, like I was in an engineering asset task force, so when I'd show up, I was doing engineering shit, and it was typically like our security apparatus was typically like a SEAL team. They don't really talk to like SF community. They kind of have like a controlled animosity between the two organizations to keep them separate and like talking and shit, because they have slightly different mission sets and like their home bases and philosophy and stuff. Their ethos are like kind of like built along different flavors, you know, that are kind of like competing. So they don't really talk to each other. The like Darcy is a you know, very good, you know, CQB training deal that has trained government. And by the way, if you're watching this, if you're like some fucking spook or government person, I don't have any fucking affiliation to Darcy whatsoever, and nor the I can't even remember the fucking guy that runs its name. I can't even fucking remember. I talked to him. I talked to him one time, like years ago. So this is nothing like, you know, that dude's probably watched. That dude would probably hear about this video and be like, fucking Dugan, fucking throw. I don't mean it like that. I do not know Darcy or anything, right? And won't speak for him. What I'm saying is that Darcy has trained law enforcement with gas masks for a long time. In the SF community, to answer Amy's question, what happens in like special missions units and shit, they will train in the most disadvantageous you know, like orientations of posture and gear and scenario and shit like that, because it puts you in a position where you have to do like constant checksums mentally. And people don't realize this that are trained there. Probably, I don't know. I've never even trained at Darcy, so I don't really know what like the philosophy is. This is just like observational shit, right? So, for example, there are people that will train, you know, like training with nods is really good because it forces you to turn your head directly at whatever it is that you need to visually observe, which is a practice that is good whether you're wearing nods or not. Because what people do in the civilian world when they're not wearing gear and shit like that is that they'll look at shit out of like peripheral vision and shit, and it's not acute enough under stress to, like, there's a lot of room in there to fuck shit up. And so what happens if you try with nods, it forces you to have like fucking direct observational connection to your environment through the nods, because nods have fucking tunnel vision and you can only see like a limited field of view. So people will, you know, which is very, if you don't do any training like that, like if you, let's say you're a civilian, you have no idea what I'm talking about, and you're, you know, like if you went outside right now with a pair of nods on and tried to like get in a gunfight with somebody, like you're not gonna do very well, right? So it starts off when you start training with it, you know, in infancy, like for the first few years, you're kind of like learning the ropes and shit. After a while, it becomes second nature, and then what happens is it ends up enhancing all of your other, you know, interfacing into direct action, you know, training missions, whatever, in your mission, right? In your overall mission, like your TTPs and procedures. I keep saying procedure. TTPs has procedures in there. I don't need to say that. Your TTPs end up being enhanced by you being redundant and being direct, you know, like that's the deal. So like the gas mask thing is about that. I'm just saying that it's interesting to me that, you know, like there's a large number of police that went to Darcy and they're doing CQB training with gas masks as a CQB combat enhancer. I wonder if there's some kind of relationship to, like, now you're just seeing all over the country, you're seeing like police with gas masks, you know what I mean? So it's like because of riots and shit like that, right? The deployment of CS agent, right? It's just interesting. That was just a fucking psycho rant, okay? So, you know, chill the fuck out. Freedom of speech, bro. So anyway, this whole thing, what I'm saying is that SF, you know, all the special missions units in the United States for the military, all that shit is post World War II. It's out of the OSS. The OSS comes out of international subversion through fucking World War II, and then they develop models that they curtail to be attractive to the American psychology, and then they don't really know who's at the top ever because of like national security and shit. If you knew who was like really running shit, then you'd fucking start to pick up a pattern. I'll put it that way. I don't even know, right? I don't even know if I can guarantee that you pick up a pattern. Okay, so he wants to know about decent monocular. So, totally depends on what you. Totally depends on your, what your. It depends on what. See, I don't know. So like, I've got this thing where it's like, I believe the weapon is the person, not the equipment of the weapon, right? And so like, I'm really comfortable with using shit that would like really bother other people. So I don't know what. The standard is the PVS-14 would be like your basic standard for nodes, right? The Aurora, the Psionics Aurora is a cheap digital night vision unit that's pretty effective. You may need augmented IR light, which is easily available and cheap, and it's considerably cheaper than 14s, right? It does have a delay in there, and so like if you get into some fucking like heated fucking shit where you need like nanoseconds of mental processing, you're gonna have some image staggering there. But it's a really cool device that's cheap and effective if you're understand its limitations and shit and how to augment it with external IR light. Does that kind of answer the question? Yeah, no problem. I use a red light in my car. Somebody asks why the red light. It scares me. I use a red light in my car so that my vision can adjust better to the road. So if I'm like, you ever drive around and you have a passenger in the car and you're like, I want to put on lipstick, and they fucking flip on your overhead light or whatever, and then you're like, fuck, I can't see the deer. Like, so the red light, I use that so that my eyes can adjust quicker. I've got multiple sclerosis, so like my vision is actually really good. My vision's super fucking good. I have like really good vision, but the my adjustment time has like suffered because of NS and shit like that, and so I put that shit in there so my eyes can adjust to having to look at something in my cabin to going back to the road. All right. Let's stop talking about me. Now, I will say this. Somebody said that they disagree that electric night vision, like digital night vision, I'm assuming what you're saying. Digital night vision is effective, and there's units out there that you can't buy in the public that are really effective. It's a few years away from being like rolled out. They've done analog for a long time because you have monopoly on the tubes. So that's the reason that analog has its plan, and it works well too. Like analog works well; it's robust. There's still electricity flowing through fucking analog tubes. That's how you're like turning on your night vision. The digital night vision, as sensors get better, it's going to supplant analog eventually. The cutting edge digital night vision is really good. You actually have color night vision in the current state of the art. Night vision is in the color spectrum, and so you can basically you're getting weird stuff with like purples and blues and shit because of the infrared spectrum being represented in that digital presentation to you. But other than that, it looks very, it's kind of like walking around in the daytime. not talking about this stuff anymore. We're going on. We're moving on here. All right. So you guys do whatever you guys do whatever the fuck you want to do. I don't even know. To be totally honest, I don't even know why anybody's watching these videos. Yeah, so BLM, both BLM is the racial component. So somebody asked me, like, what's the deal with the Black Armed Militia BLM stuff? BLM is to invoke the racial component for confusion. Antifa is to invoke the political element, which is necessary because there are people in the United States that are so brainwashed that they don't even believe in, like, they don't even, like, acknowledge race. It's mostly white people that don't acknowledge the concept of race. It's also Marxist. It's just in the opposite way. And so they have to, like, in order to effectively appeal to them, they have to have the, like, people that are all business and no anything else. They're like government people, basically. In order to get them, they have to have Antifa because it's a more traditional. It's not so much a sociological model. It's like a poli-sci model of a threat. So that's why you have the two domains of both BLM and Antifa. They're both fake. They're both introduced. They're both made by the same people. They're introduced in the United States in order to create a reaction out of you. The actual purpose of it is societal reaction. Like whatever that ends up taking place as, whether you actually do it or they, foment or create whatever the reaction is and then say it was you, it doesn't really matter. It's just there for the historical account of why things progress the way that they do, so that when they switch your government out for the new government, they have a historical record of, like, this is how it occurred, like, this is what happened, and then we ended up, everybody has cameras in their buttholes or whatever, like that is why it's necessary to have the specific semantics of each of these groups and have a big clusterfuck going on in terms of the American population trying to parse the information that's available that is way over the top, so much so that it's inundating their ability to evaluate reality. All right, I'm invoking my rule. If you talk about something that's not immediately related to what I'm talking about, then you're going to start getting kicked out of here, all right? The reason why is because I got a bunch of fucking subverters coming here and throwing shit all the time. I can't tell who they are because they just make new accounts. So I'm telling you right now, I'm not going to talk about Colorado theater shooting because I don't know anything about it. That's a county rule? No, it's not. Who's not subverted? I don't even know who the fuck you people are. Like, come on, what are you, fucking 12 years old? I'm trying to do a stream here and you guys are talking about shit that's not nothing to do with the stream. All of you. And you're pulling people that aren't, we want to stay, a little bit on topic, right? You can talk about something. I mean, if you can go a little, yeah. Here we go. Robert Blostein, which often talks about things that are off topic, made a very good point here where he talks about warning people about the UN. You should be aware of the UN. The UN is displayed through the UN is a real organization, but they're simply facilitators of world government. So if you don't know the history of this, the UN derives from the failed League of Nations, which would have come out of the resolution of World War I. It has some serious errors. I'm not going to go into it because it's I'm talking about errors in terms of what they were trying to accomplish, and so they had to regroup and reattack, and then do the United Nations. So when the United Nations gets established, post World War II, you get their headquarters donated by the Rockefeller family in New York. Okay. Now, in terms of what actually is the UN? Well, it's got a lot of confused people in there, and it's got a lot of people that think that they're power players, and it's got some people in there that do know what's going on, and they are either trying to play power, or at least they're aware of who's in power, and they're there for some kind of purpose. But in the media, in the media, it is portrayed that the UN is against Israel. That is incorrect. That is incorrect. So the people that made Israel are the people that made the UN. It's the same. It's the same thing. It's just from different. It's just different, illusory little theater plays to give you brand imagery, so you think of something like a brand, like a flavor, like a product, and you don't understand the crossover. Especially when they give you a story about what it is, like what is this organization. They give you a story about it, and then you accept it, and you don't look at what they're actually executing and doing, and the picture that paints. Then you can't understand the connection. And so the UN, I'm assuming that the UN will not remain. It will go away at some point. But as of now, the UN, I think it'll be replaced by something that's a little bit more less, like, the UN's kind of corny. So I think it'll get replaced with something that's a little bit more palatable to the masses. But the UN is in operation now. They're pretty much everywhere. They figured out pretty quick after World War II that particularly Americans and shit don't like the UN. They don't like the brand image. They don't like the things that they do. They don't like the people that are involved. It's a very alien organization. And so what the UN did was they started to go through like the contracting model and setting up subsidiaries and shit. You have the UN. The UN is operating in the United States, pretty much everywhere. They're in every major city under operations that have like business entity names that don't have the words UN in them, and they don't wear blue helmets. They are corporate type entities that are doing mostly it's consolidation of support structures like energy and water and things like that. And they are tied in completely with the IMF. The IMF is the formal public-facing facade of the world government structure, like of who's really running the ship. That is the name tag of the finance arm of world government for a public-facing facade, like the storefront, like the sign that you would go and put on a store, right? The business owners of the store aren't actually in the store, and they could have put any sign on there that they want. They just thought that like IMF was the most useful. So the UN is completely partnered with the IMF. The UN has a 2030 agenda, which is published, which basically it's basically a consolidation, like a new phase of consolidation of the nation states into consolidated control. And you've had this idea kind of fleshed out with different slogans and brand names by seemingly independent philanthropists and shit since pretty much since like post 9/11. There are conferences and stuff on YouTube where they talk about there's a concept that, let's see, what is one of the buzz terms? Philanthropists will use the term government. What is it? They say like representation without not nationalism. What's the term? The populism. Let's say government without representation without populism. That's like a term that they use for the new system that they're experimentally considering. And basically what it means, and this is actually great that we're talking about this, because yesterday CNN aired a clip with what's the guy's name from the Avenger movie, the fucking dumbass actor from the Avenger. I never even seen it, so I and I haven't watched movies for like 2 decades, really. But the fucking main guy, the Captain America. I'm sorry, Captain America guy. Okay, yeah, Chris Evans. So Chris Evans came out with a political website that is called The Starting Point, TSP. And this got launched, like, they announced the launch on CNN the other day with whoever that fuckface is that is at CNN that is a total fucking psychopath. I can see it right through his fucking flesh facade. Fucking psycho. Whoever the guy is with the curly hair, the bug eyes that is always freaking out on CNN. The fucking so Chris Evans, you know, obviously the guy didn't make shit. Like, that guy has about as many rocks rolling around his head as, you know, the floorboard of my car. And yeah, Fredo, yeah, the fucking you know, he got like the carpet rolled out for him on CNN to announce this, and then it's a very close approximation of representation without populism, where they turn government. They're experimenting with presenting a facade to the public of government being like a video game, like you elect leaders in, you know, based off their stat cards and shit like that from a pool, and then you talk about, you know, it's like elective consumerism, where you go, you know, what really represents me? What kind of person am I? What kind of accessory do I need? Like, how do I represent myself with my spending? Things like that, right? It's the same thing. That is the model of the future government, of how they want to present the facade to occupy the minds of people into accepting it and thinking about themselves and how the government, you know, interfaces with them, and being confused by presenting it as this is a new model that's just radically different, will solve all our problems. Obviously, what's really going on is that you have world government, and this is just the dumb, like, circus clown window that they're presenting to you while you stand there like a retard putting quarters into the claw machine. That's what's really going on. And in the CNN promo, they showed like clips from the website. Obviously, you know, it had like bits on there from like Chuck Schumer and shit like that, you know, with the fucking watermark of The Starting Point, which is the website. So this is all, you know, these are fucking Jews that are, you know, creating a new governmental system and presenting it to the public under a very deceptive, I mean, fuck. If people are so dumb that they can't see this shit and accept it, then they just, I mean, you deserve what you fucking get, you know? I mean, I try to fucking help you, but man, you don't make it easy. Yeah, I mean, there's not really any charity. That's the thing. On your ability to really, if you want to do charity, go get your own hands dirty. Legion of Breadlines. Yeah, I know. We do kind of fucking deserve it. We don't really deserve it, right? Though. Do you think women and children deserve what's coming? They don't. Like, children do not deserve what's coming of any generation. Whatever mistake we each make in our life through our choices stops with us, and it doesn't flow into the next generation. And the child is guilty of their parents' misfortune, right? And poor decision and selfishness. The child, the next generation, they're not accountable for that, and that is the reason why. That's the reason that it's not proper to discount and give up at any time, no matter how bad it gets, you know. And it's an obligation, really. It's a, you know, like if you're actually considering this shit and thinking about it in depth, like, that is the obligation. And the visceral irony of it is that that is exactly the primary, that is a hot HVT, I'm talking about like a high value target of the world government is to target the youngest generations possible. And that is the reason why, because every generation is an opportunity to wake up. And so they want to spend extra resources to captivate and inundate the youngest generation they can possibly access. And the socialization of the world in terms of smartphone technology and social media, which has all been carefully introduced and developed and bounced around and altered to be more effective over time. That stuff is all precisely augmented over time to more quickly access, captivate, and inundate the youngest possible generation. And in terms of before even electronics became a thing, this is a part of the entire history of social engineering, is to dissolve the family unit and to separate man and wife and separate parents from children, and to have the control paradigm structure kind of supplant the father role and the family role, and to lose your history. And the reason for this is because of the child, because of the most vulnerable and the most dangerous generation, which is the newest generation, because every generation has like a fresh start. And so this is actually the reason that world government targets the family. It's not any evil pleasure, like whatever you want to call it, anything besides that would occur as a byproduct, like the destruction between man and wife and whatever. That's all for building up the purpose of accessing the young people. Because when you're not a family unit, when you don't have the ability to have a family, like a real family, and you're kind of like granted the status of family by society while you're all being socialized, and your wife is heavily socialized, and you become virtually at odds with each other because of your like an evil whisper in both of your ears through society, through technology, through media, through coveting and thinking about ideals that are not about what you're supposed to be doing, which is making a family and perpetuating your generations. By doing that, they pull your focus from guarding your children, and then they're able to access your children. And that's the reason why smartphones and shit are every single day moving closer and closer to the fucking womb. And I wouldn't be fucking surprised. I mean, obviously, I don't think they're gonna go so far as to stick smartphones up your pregnant wife or something like that. I don't mean it like that. I mean like, as an analogy, the smartphone is moving closer to the womb. They're trying to captivate and capture your newest generation as quickly as possible. Makes sense? I haven't had any comments in a while. Are you guys getting comments started or what? I guess we're getting comments started. I'm not seeing anything. It's just like locked up. There's 0 comments right now. Hasn't been for a few minutes. All right. So anyway, we started off this live stream. We were talking about the deployment of federal agents into Kansas City, Missouri, and how that is a microcosm of the greater strategy of putting federal executive assets throughout the United States to stage them for the transition, the actual direct action coup that's going to be occurring, where they're going to basically, I mean, they literally call it in the paper, they call it a surge, which is very similar to Iraq. So in Ramadi, where you had the Al-Anbar awakening, which is kind of a fake thing. But like in terms of the tactics, like the on the ground tactics, we basically built a Berlin Wall through Ramadi to separate and limit mobility, so that you could section off the city into like isolated areas that could then be indexed in a tactical datum when you're responding to any activity, so they don't have free travel to just zip from one side to the other, and then you're looking around one side, they're not even there, like one side of the city, I'm saying. And so that's why they built the Berlin Wall through the fucking troop surge. They're using the term troop surge in the newspapers and shit to describe these deployments, because this is like what's going on. And by having the destabilization operations, they're able to set up the actual meat and potatoes changes in the United States. Like, if you would imagine for a moment that there were no riots at all, and that was the most surprising scenario to think of, right? Like something that's in recent memory. So 2016. If we go back to 2016 or 2015, let's say like before election, right? So let's go to 2015, the end of President Obama's second term. If you started to see federal assets getting deployed all over the place for no reason, then people would be like freaked out, right? Even then, that was a very recent time. Things were different, right? You've had changes take place in this public psyche of what they accept and expect to see, right? And so, operations, it would be conspicuous, and then the American public would start to understand what's going on by having a background story that is fed in from so many angles, from think tanks, from academia, from MSM, from the professional sector, of the false narrative of why this shit is going on. They can then respond to it. And this is why last night, when I just was trying to make the appeal to law enforcement, and I was describing like how they're, the real people that are not involved in this, the general public, are the purpose of this dialectic, of this change that's being forced upon you. It's not to like conspicuously rule over you to where you're disgruntled. It's to create situations that you're disgruntled in your opposition to them from the get-go, so that then they can motivate radical response through the structure that they have the most control over, and to get you on board with it and support it, and get all your eggs in one basket to be behind it. And this is the purpose of all of this, is to strategically stage elements of the government that are not elected and have no relationship to the constituency, under pretenses that were created, so that you accept the deployment. And they are, rest assured that they are actually staging for ulterior purposes that will be revealed later when they come to light. All of the federal executive independent agencies that are involved in this. In Kansas City, you have DHS, ATF, FBI are the primary ones. You also have, I think there's some like DOJ assets there in this deployment that has an operational name, just like how a military structures operations in formatting. What is occurring is the staging in preparation of what's going to be revealed, and it's a new phase. That's why I'm making this video. It's a new phase. You guys got to wake up. I know that you're not going to. I know that we got really bad odds. But when I say you guys, when I'm doing these videos, I'm talking to a lot of different people. I'm talking both to the military. I'm also talking to Jews. And that can be hard to see, right? Because the reason why it's hard to see all the people that I'm talking to is because when I'm structuring these comments that I'm saying,